Hi there, and welcome to another interview today. I've got a fabulous guest called Anna with me, and I'm going to ask Anna a similar question to the question I ask absolutely everybody. Hey, Anna, why did you become keto?
Oh, well, it's kind of a lifelong journey like it is for most people. I was overweight as a child. Actually, I remember as a child loving butter, and I would reach up to the counter, but I couldn't even see over the counter. I'd reach up to the counter into the butter dish to try to get, a little bit on my fingers, and I'd get in trouble, and not in a lot of trouble, but just like, oh, we don't want to eat butter. It's not good for you. And so that's one of my earlier memories. And I've always been kind of laughed at in my family for liking butter so much. Yes, I was overweight as a child. And now looking back, I realized that I probably had some nutrient deficiencies that weren't being addressed. And so I try now to give my kids a lot of butter. But yeah, as my childhood continued, I was always loved and accepted and doted on by my family, but at school I knew that I was different. And by high school, I had a little bit more autonomy, and I asked my parents if they would help me lose weight. So at that point, I was probably about 50 to 60 pounds overweight. As a sophomore in high school, I was 16, and my parents, of course, were so ready to help me with anything. They were so supportive. And so that's kind of when I started my first official diet. I did a program called LA Weight Loss. It was kind of like a Jenny Craig type program. You ate more real food and cooked more food at home than Jenny Craig, but you would go in and you would see a consultant between 1 and 3 times a week. And you would log everything that you put into your mouth in a little diary. And they sold you these proprietary blend protein bars. And so you could eat 2 of those a day, along with, I was on the teen plan, so I could eat 3 fruits and 2.5 proteins, and everything was measured. And so I was able to lose, I think, about 50 pounds at that time. And I did that in a summer. So I came back to high school my junior year, and I looked like a completely different person. And I think I surprised a lot of people. So the attention was really fun. And I was able to keep that off into my 20s until I started having babies. I kind of bounced around, the same 10 to 15 pounds off and on. I would kind of go back to what the protocol was on LA Weight Loss. And yeah, I was able to keep that off. And then I got married. Actually, I did a crash diet right before I got married. I did the isogenics shakes. I don't know if you've heard of those, but everyone has, I think what I noticed is when you lose weight, everyone has a product that they want to sell you and get you to buy and get you, I don't know, addicted to or dependent on for weight loss. And so I was able to lose, 20 pounds before my wedding. I felt great. Besides being hungry all the time. And then I started having babies, and I had 4 beautiful boys within the span of 5.5 years. And each pregnancy, I gained anywhere from 35 to 55 pounds. We had them very quickly, so my body never recovered fully. I was never able to take the weight off fully after each one. After the second one, I didn't lose the last, say, 25 pounds. Like, it just compounded to about 100 pounds in total. So at that point, once I was ready to lose the weight, my youngest baby was about 2.5 years old. And I knew I didn't want to spend more money. I knew I didn't want to eat fake food. I knew that I was always, always mentally hungry. I think a lot of people, kind of a buzzword I hear a lot of people talking about is food noise. And that really resonated with me. I was constantly thinking about food. What is my next meal? How am I going to get the most bang for my buck? How am I going to eat the most without eating the most calories? It was just a constant game. And I was tired of being overweight. I was starting to feel the effects of being overweight. Every time I went to the doctor, I had high blood pressure, and I was usually going to the doctor for chronic UTI infections, despite doing all of the right things that they tell you to do. I was feeling moody. I was foggy. just mentally not sharp at all. I often told my husband, I feel like I'm going crazy. And it was always like, well, you have 4 kids, 6 and under. Of course you feel crazy. And I was homeschooling them too. So I was with them all the time. So that's what I always chalked it up to. But actually, I was on Instagram just looking at various accounts like we all do. And my favorite accounts were always the weight loss and inspiration accounts, and just thinking like, someday that is going to be me. I'm going to do it someday. Those were kind of the seeds that were being planted in my early 30s of like, I'm going to do this. I just have to figure out the best way. I was following a girl who's kind of in a similar boat. She had gained a lot of weight after having her babies and had been struggling to take it off. And she had kind of developed her own plan. It was called like the 21-day fix or something. She was trying to sell the plan online, and I ended up buying it for $20. And I started it and I felt hungry. I felt so hungry. So I was like, well, this isn't going to work. So after that, she started struggling with a lot of metabolic dysfunction. I watched her kind of over the course of a year and a half go on this journey of discovering what metabolic function is, what dysregulated blood sugar was, what insulin resistance was. And so she started walking through this whole thing on Instagram. It was like watching a documentary. Every day I'd check Tiffany's profile to see like, what's she doing now? She was sharing all of this information as she went on. And it was just really amazing what she was learning. She was sharing videos from Dr. Eric Berg and Dr. Sten Ekberg and Dr. Ken Berry and Dr. Jason Fung. And then she kept dropping the name of Jason Fung's book, The Obesity Code. And I thought, I'm not going to read a book about obesity. That's not my problem. Well, it was my problem. I was in denial. I finally bought it on Audible and I listened to it at the end of 2021. I listened to it throughout December. And I think my husband and I sat down, our wedding anniversary is December 30th. So every year we sit down and it's nice. We have a meal together and, you know, we do our little anniversary date and we always talk about what our goals are for the upcoming year. We're not big into goal setting or even writing our goals down. We just talk kind of general, like what would we like to see happen this year for our children, our finances, our health, so on and so forth. So for the last several years, it had been like, oh, we want to lose weight. We want to get healthy. And this year I was like, hey, I've been reading this book called The Obesity Code, and it makes so much sense intellectually. And it makes so much sense physiologically, the way he's explaining all these principles. And I want to try the ketogenic diet. And he was like, that's such a buzzword. It's trendy. I don't think it's going to work. And I said, here's the thing. I've tried so many things with products. I've tried starting on my own. I've tried calories in, counting calories out. I've tried counting macros. I counted all the things and I'm still hungry and I'm still overweight. So like, maybe let's just give this a shot. And so we tried it. I actually kind of started slow. I knew that I had a sugar addiction. I knew it wasn't just food that I thought about, but it was sugar. And I felt compulsion to go towards sugar, refined grains, starchy things, but mostly dessert. And so I knew that I had to kind of wean myself off of the processed sugar first. And then, so it's kind of a soft start to keto. I know people do it different ways, but I actually took about the last 2 weeks of December. I didn't tell anyone, but great time of year too with Christmas, and all of the treats, but I just stopped eating the desserts. And, I felt good by December 30th when we had that talk. And then, by January 1st, we in a very cliche fashion, started the ketogenic diet on January 1st, 2022. And the rest has been history. So it's, I started clean keto. I really tried not to buy a lot of packaged foods. I do every now and again. It's a very small part of what I eat, but mostly whole ingredient, or one ingredient whole foods is what I do. I eat a lot of meat and a lot of dairy, a lot of butter. I eat eggs every day. I eat all of the things they've told us for the last 70 or 80 years not to eat because they're bad and they're going to raise our cholesterol and they're going to make us fat. I ate all of those things and it was amazing. The food noise stopped. My mental focus came back. I was able to complete tasks and work really hard at home. I stay at home with my kids and I homeschool them. And my mental focus and my mental goal in the beginning shifted as well to something that I've never done before. A lot of people talk about like manifesting, and I don't do that sort of thing, but there was a mental switch that happened that was, I can do this. I'm going to do this. It's, in fact, in the future, it's already done. And so I'm going to treat my body that way for my future self. And so that was also another key piece. It wasn't just following the principles of the ketogenic diet. I did that. I did that to a T, and I was very strict in the beginning. But that mental shift of like, this is already done in the future, it's non-negotiable, that really, I think, also benefited me. And I was able to lose 100 pounds. It did take 2.5 years. But that's also another thing that I didn't do. Like every time before I had tried to lose weight, it was, well, I am getting married in 3 months. I have to lose 19 pounds in 3 months. And that's doable for a lot of people. But it's so mentally and emotionally discouraging when you don't do it. And so for another first that I had never done before was, I said, there is no timeline. It took me, I've been overweight off and on my entire life. So it's been my entire life of not treating my body correctly, not fueling it, not nourishing it. This could take 1 year. It could take 5 years. It doesn't matter. It's as long as I keep with it and I finish the goal. So I took the time restriction off too, and that helped me. I know there's varying opinions on that, and like evidence of like you need a timed goal in order to be successful. But I think when it was a goal that was that big for me, just taking the pressure off and saying like it's okay. It's you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it no matter what. The time frame doesn't matter. That's another thing that helped me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a brilliant answer. And for people that have never seen you before, this is Anna's first interview. So I thought that was stunning, that answer. That was ever so good. And the reason you're on the show is because I've been following you on Instagram and I love the things you say. It doesn't matter whether it's keto, carnivore, ketovore. These principles are really helpful. And I understand what you say about the time limit because, my advanced personal training background was always SMART goals, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time frames. And one of the things I've noticed, the longer it takes for the fat to come off, the longer it stays off. Do you think that's true?
I 100% believe that, because I think especially in today's culture, we're so focused on the symptom of weight loss. And we treat that as like, well, that's the root cause. I gained weight. Our bodies are so much more complex than that. And we need to treat the root cause so that the symptom goes away, which is the weight gain. If we're just focused on a quick fix, it rebounds because our bodies we haven't treated the root cause. Our cells are still not working optimally. They're still not processing fuel efficiently. They're still not even taking nutrients in. So if we haven't fixed the root cause, we're not going to be ahead 6 months down the road. It's going to come right back. And I speak from experience. I know that when I went on the Isogenics thing, and I'm not trying to knock them. I think their shakes taste amazing. And I think they probably have some nutritive value, but I wasn't treating the whole picture at that point in my life. So it was just a quick fix. It did the job, absolutely. But I didn't address some of the other things in my body that were going on at the time. And so after my wedding, I packed on, the 19 or 20 pounds that I lost or whatever, I packed on 13 to 15 again, almost instantly, because I couldn't afford to keep buying the shakes. Yeah, definitely that rebound effect. And I've been afraid the entire process, the 2.5-year process, I've been afraid that what's going to happen when I'm done with this. Well, one, my mind shift changed like this. I learned this is a lifestyle. This is not a diet. I absolutely love eating this way. Like I said, for the first time in my life, I'm not obsessed with food. I am full. The last time I ate was it's almost noon here in Arizona, and the last time I ate was last night at 5. That is not who I've ever been. It's still mind blowing to me 2 years later that I can fast, and it's not hard, and I'm not dying or food obsessed.
Yeah.
And so back to that original question of like losing slowly. Yes, absolutely. You can maintain this lifestyle so easily. You don't really have to think about it. It's effortless to maintain my weight, which is a dream come true because I never, ever dreamed of being here.
I'm going to clear something up as well for people that are listening. When you were a child, you liked butter, but that wasn't the reason you gained weight, was it? It wasn't the butter.
That's absolutely right. No, the reason I gained weight as a child is because, my family, like every other family, they were just doing their best. And the common knowledge was calories in, calories out, and a low-fat diet to keep your heart healthy. Eat those Cheerios and the grains, and it was the 50 to 60% of your diet should come from carbohydrates. And so that's what we did. And my whole family has struggled with their weight. And I will share something fun with you about my immediate family. I have an older brother, a younger sister, and a mom and a dad. And collectively in the last 3 or 4 years, we've lost over 400 pounds together. So this is something that is a family endeavor. We've all kind of gone our separate ways and found what's worked for us. And I think we all feel really good, and that's great. I'm proud that we've worked our way out of that 90s diet culture, low fat, low cal thing. So yes, butter did not cause my weight gain. It was the highly processed foods. It was the carbohydrates. It was the sugary drinks. It was, things that were considered normal in the 90s.
Your story is very inspiring, but also very frustrating because it hits a lot, millions of people, basically.
Millions. Yeah. And we're all trying our best, and we're all believing and trusting the system that we're in. And I think what I learned through reading Jason Fung's book is it's not the people. Like obesity, I think he said it, is that obesity is not a people problem, it's a systems problem. And if you can get out of the system, you'll change your life.
That's absolutely right. And that's really well summed up, actually. I noticed you said about your sugar addiction, you said you just stopped eating dessert. So do you feel that that is a big key plank of the way you, have set your stall out, so to speak, that it is just abstaining? It's not moderation. It's not a little bit when you fancy it. It's just, I'm not having it. Is that the thing?
So a couple things about that. With sugar, with refined sugar, refined sweeteners, flours, grains, I completely abstain from those. I treat myself like an addict, like an alcoholic, like a drug addict. I abstain from that. However, once I felt like I was fat adapted early on, like, a couple months in, and I felt like keto was really working for me. I enjoy baking, I enjoy cooking, and I did want to find ways to introduce treats back into my life and my family's life. So I do eat dessert now. It looks a little bit different. It might be like berries and cream, or I don't know if you know who Carolyn Ketchum is, but she has a keto food blog and does a lot of amazing desserts with things like almond flour, coconut flour. And she has a lot of knowledge in terms of like the chemistry of a lot of the sweeteners that people use. And so I follow her for inspiration. And like in the fall, I'll make like a keto pumpkin cheesecake that's to die for. She's does a really good job with that. So I will have treats occasionally. I enjoy them, and I would still probably classify myself as someone with a sweet tooth, but when it comes to refined sugar, I don't do it at all.
Okay, and what meats do you eat? What animal products do you eat? And do you eat daily?
I eat them daily. I don't restrict myself with how much meat or fat I use at all. I actually restrict myself with how many vegetables I eat, not necessarily because of the carb count, but the way I feel. And so I know that's a big thing in the carnivore world is that, plant toxins and that sort of thing. So I am careful with that advice, but because I've noticed I feel different when I eat too many plants. But I eat beef, a lot of beef. I do beef every way. Ground ribeyes are my favorite steak. We do a lot. When I discovered beef short ribs, that was kind of a life-changing experience making those for the first time, because they're so filling, and it doesn't take a lot of beef short ribs for a meal for me anymore. So short ribs. I eat chicken. I eat some fish. I'm in Arizona, so it's hard to find good fresh seafood. Mostly beef, and then a lot of chicken thighs.
And people might be surprised that I've got you on the channel because I'm a carnivore influencer. I hate that word, but anyway. But I just feel a lot of what you say, it does cross over. And I think, the abstaining, this is what I say to people. The biggest issue I see is across the board, low carb, keto, carnivore, or even actually just in the mainstream, is sugar addiction and emotional eating. There are two things that come up. And I think because you talk about both of those things on your Instagram, I just think that's really interesting. So if someone comes to you and says, well, I'm eating because of emotions, what do you say to them?
Oh, that's hard. Say, I've been there. It's hard. So what I think back on in my life is that it's hard to eat from emotions when you are physically and physiologically satiated. When your body is really full and you have those hunger and satiety cues come back, you don't want to violate your body in that way because it feels uncomfortable. I wouldn't try to tackle the emotional eating first. I would try to tackle the physical hunger first and the physical satiety first. Because if you're hungry, it's gonna go up here and you're gonna be hungry here too. So if you're physically full, it's very hard to eat emotionally anymore. So that would be my answer.
But if you make yourself as robust as possible, that's the nub of it. If you're an emotional eater and you're hungry, wow, you've just made the thing worse for yourself because if you're full, it does. I'm not saying it fixes it for everybody, but it certainly makes it harder to go and grab tons of food if you're already satiated. The other thing I want to talk about, and I think it's not mentioned enough, actually, I'm going to read a sentence from your Instagram, and I thought it was really interesting. I read once that a woman has 4 personalities based on where she is in her 28-day cycle. The 4th personality is a real doozy for me. So could you just speak a little bit about that?
Yes. So someone who I also read a lot of and watched a lot of during this whole journey was Dr. Mindy Pelz. And she has done, I think, a really good job helping women to understand their bodies, because you and I are not the same. You're on a 24-hour hormone cycle. I'm on a 28-day cycle. It looks very different. And while my husband and I were doing keto, we naturally fell into intermittent fasting because we were both full. And I was finding that part of the month I could fast with the best of them, and I was disciplined, and I could keep up with him. I could probably outfast him, and it's just I felt great. The other part of the month, I felt like I hit a wall, and I felt emotionally like a failure because, well, why can't I do this the rest of the month? And then, maybe a year and a half into keto, I found Mindy Pelz's book and I read it. And it really helped me understand that tracking your cycle is good and it's a good place to start, but there's so much more complexity to a woman's body and the fluctuations of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone throughout the month that are really going to impact, obviously, our emotions, which but it affects my hunger and appetite so much more than I ever knew. And once I listened to that and just became okay with the fluctuation and not assigning like I don't know, like a moral value to that time of the month, I'm like, okay, like yes, I can get through these 10 days or 2 weeks now with eating. Like I understand that I personally need to up my carbs just a little bit. I don't go crazy, just a little bit before my cycle. And actually, it's made my cycle more regular doing that. Yeah, there's definitely 4 personalities. There's the first 7 days. You're just kind of a little bit turned more inward, maybe a little more mopey. And then there's the next, I don't know, 5 to 7 days ovulation. You feel like $1,000,000. You could take on the world. You're flashy, you're vibrant, you want to go out and do things. And then for me, the last 2 phases kind of blend together. Some women might notice more nuance with that, but definitely that's the one where I think women are dealing with a lot more mood swings, maybe some rage. Just, yeah, that's what I've noticed.
Yeah, and it's interesting for me because in my past, I was an advanced personal trainer doing a lot of face-to-face. And if I was training a woman, I would actually say, you're going to do 2 weeks where your performance is going to be pretty good, and then it's going to drop off a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you get to the end of that 2 weeks, we're going back to the first 2 weeks. So we have to sort of step down, step back up, and you have to track the first 2 weeks constantly and the second 2 weeks constantly, because you always get the drop off in performance. The moment that's explained, it's like whew, I never understood. I thought everything was going wrong every so often, you know?
Yes, it really is a weight that's lifted off our shoulders because we realize, like, I'm not crazy. 2, yes, the changes that I'm experiencing are real, and I don't have to compare myself to a man and like that he's able to stay so steady. Like, this is how I was designed, and it's a good thing. If we didn't have this, we wouldn't have our children and our babies, and like society would not exist anymore. So we have to learn to lean into those fluctuations and differences, because it's how we've been created to be. Yeah, it seems hard when you want to lose weight, but that burden can be lifted from you of thinking that you're a failure. And it can really help you to just ride out those 2 weeks and give your body what it needs.
Yes. I mean, just to make it easy for people at home who are not quite sure what I mean, I would say, let's just to make the sums easy, the first 2 weeks, maybe that person could do 10 reps with 10 kilograms, but then the first 2 weeks of that, and then the second 2 weeks, I would see they might be able to do 8 kilograms at 10 reps. But then the following 2 weeks after that, so we're now into week 5 and 6, we'd be going back to the 10 kilograms, 10 reps. Maybe we could put the weight up there a little bit. So you get this sort of ziggy-zag chart, but the trend was always upwards. But once it's explained, you haven't got 2 weeks of hitting yourself really hard mentally and thinking, oh, what's happening? My performance is dragging. And that's when people give up. That is when people give up, when the chips are down or it's not going. So, I mean, I've had a client where she really happy first week, you know, just coincidental timing, first week from coaching. Wow, I'm down 4 pounds. It's really good. Lots of pain. Wow, this is really good. And then the third week, what's gone wrong, Stephen? I'm like, right, do you remember what we talked about? You're going to have a weight loss stalk. You might even gain a little bit. So your net result is you've lost about 6 pounds in the first 2 weeks and you've gained 2. Right, I understand that's quite depressing. But if I'd have said to you when we first started, in 3 weeks, you're going to be 4 pounds down, I guarantee it, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm happy with that. So it's just understanding that process. And I think you're one of the few people that puts it in a very simple way about the 4 personalities. And I liked how you said your second phase or third week, fourth week are about the same. It is more nuanced for some females, definitely. I really like this thing about your family as well. So I normally ask, did you have some pushback from your family when you went to this way of eating? But obviously you didn't. Did they all go on board pretty much straight away once they saw it working for you then?
So with my husband got on board. He just said, tell me what you want me to do. I'll do it.
Yeah.
So he was able to I explained it to him. We talked about, these are the theories behind it, and he did it. Our kids are not keto. I still do feed them grains in moderation, and I try to do organic, and I try to do as much as I can for them. However, their diets have drastically changed since we started. They were on a lot of processed foods, a lot of microwaved foods, and now I'm cooking a lot more for them. And we've really changed what breakfast looks like. That's the biggest one for them. They're doing eggs and bacon, eggs and sausage, maybe some berries on the side. That's what we're doing every single morning. I have 4 boys, and we're doing about 2 dozen eggs a morning for them. So actually for the whole family, we'll eat 2 dozen. So a lot of people are like, that's so many eggs. And I'm like, well, it keeps them full all day. And we've cut out snacking. That's been huge. That's huge for kids. But it's because they're full, and their brains are fueled, their bodies are fueled. So that's with like my little immediate family. My parents and siblings, they've actually all kind of gone their own way of doing different things. One of them has done actually a gastric sleeve. That was several years ago. And that person has been able to keep it off, and actually figured out a pretty severe leaky gut issue through it, and has been able to heal their gut. So that was really encouraging to watch that person struggle through that. And they ended up getting to the root cause at the end, which was, it was very interesting and kind of illuminated a lot of things for me. One of them is kind of the opposite of me and does kind of vegetarian and fasting. And that person has found success through that. And then another one has actually done some GLP-1 shots and has found success through that. So we've all gone very different directions and have found success in different ways. And now when we get together for dinner, we're all eating very different things.
I think this interview might be one that I catch up with you in a couple of years' time and hear how you've all changed and what's been the best for the long-term success. Because I think that's when you start experimenting, and everyone is experimenting there. Be interested to know in 2 years' time if they're all doing the same things or if they've included fish and eggs or whatever, So I think it's great that you're all doing it. And I hope people that's watching my channel realise I'm open-minded. I want to listen to people that are reversing problems. And I don't sort of condemn anyone. If someone has decided to go vegetarian, for instance, or vegan, at least they're thinking about it. Going back to the system, it's when you realise the system is wrong and everything you're being told is wrong and your eyes are open. You might try one thing first, like veganism or vegetarianism. You might find in 4 years that's not working for you anymore. Then you try something else. But at least trying, that's the thing. You're thinking about it. The best thing about all of this is not listening to the food guidelines. And
right.
That's the bottom line for me. I don't want people to listen to the food guidelines and actually try to make informed choices and listen to their body. I mean, I'm doing this full circle because you as a child knew you liked butter. There you go. So you knew it was a good thing. Your body was craving those essential fatty acids, and it was, all the good things that are in butter you wanted. And at that period of time, in the news, it was don't eat butter, eat margarine. Terrible advice. Absolutely. So your parents only did what they thought was best for you. So very interesting. So Anna, if, we've come to the end of the interview. I always do short interviews. If someone came to you and said, oh, I'm stuck on the standard American diet or standard Western diet, I don't think I can do this. What advice would you give them?
They don't think they can do keto? Is that what you mean?
I can't give up my bread and pasta and rice and grains and cereals. I can't do it, but I'm overweight and I'm very ill. What would you say?
It's hard because I thought that way for 3 years before I actually said yes to keto. I think you kind of have to come to a point where you're at the end of the road. Like, I've tried everything. I've heard other people say, just give it 12 weeks. 12 weeks is 3 months of the year. If you can do it for 12 weeks and at the end of 12 weeks, you say, I can't do this anymore, then I guess it's not for you. But I really doubt that's going to happen because the benefits that you experience are life-changing. The mental clarity alone on keto, the high from ketones, unmatched. You will be able to face any trial that comes into your life if you are fueling your body properly. I really believe that. I've had some hard things happen throughout this process, and I haven't wavered. That's been another thing that's been amazing is I thought, if life gets hard, I'm going to fall off. And no, I press in harder because I know that the food that I'm fueling my body with is the best. And it's making me operate optimally